Mr. Jing Haipeng.
And talking about Mr. Jing Haipeng and his fellow Taikonauts, they're now meeting the public. This is an embarking ceremony for the 3 Taikonauts in China's Shenzhou-16 manned space mission. This is Zhu, flight engineer, and this is Mr. Gui Haichao, payload expert. And standing in the middle is Mr. Jing Haipeng, commander of this mission. You're watching live footage from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwestern China. This is an embarking ceremony for the 3 Taikonauts. Now they're addressing the public.
Comrade Commander-in-Chief, we are following the order to carry out the Shenzhou-16 manned spaceflight mission. Now we are ready to go. Please indicate. Member of PLA Astronaut Corps Taikonaut Jing Haipeng, Zhu Yangzhu, Taikonaut Gui Haichao. Proceed. Yes.
This is an embarking ceremony for the 3 Taikonauts in China's Shenzhou-16 manned space mission. The commander of the mission has just given an order to go. So this is official now. The 3 Taikonauts are going to the launch site and they will be entering space. The launch is scheduled at 09:31 Beijing time in a little bit less than 3 hours time from now, and that's 01:31 GMT. The 3 Taikonauts are now meeting the public, and we can evidently sense the enthusiasm at the site. People from all walks of life and from a wide range of age groups, including children and students from local primary and middle schools, are sending their best wishes to the 3 Taikonauts for a successful mission. And of course, the media attention, you can tell, all the cameras there, because this mission is quite crucial. It's called Shenzhou-16, but actually it's also the first in the application and development stage of China's space station. And the stories of those Taikonauts and significance of their mission are also an inspiration for the younger generation of the country, as we were talking about. This embarking ceremony is happening at Wentiange, or the Pavilion of Heavenly Quest. This is where the Taikonauts usually stay before the launch of the mission. Now they're going to the actual launch site in Jiuquan. And they will also go through final preparations and equipment checks. Every detail cannot be missed in rocket science, one of the most complex systems in human history. This is the commander of the Shenzhou-16 mission, Mr. Jing Haipeng. He's a pilot, of course. The other 2 Taikonauts are Zhu Yangzhu, he's the flight engineer, and Mr. Gui Haichao is payload expert. This is Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. Weather looks good at the moment. Professor Yang,
yes.
Do you think the weather is quite favorable for a successful launch?
Exactly, as Yibing has already mentioned, the weather in Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center is quite good today. You know that's to concern about the launch. There are many restraints. For instance, the wind should not be very strong, and if there are rain, if it is not very heavy, it will not disturb the launch itself. But we do consider about the thunder and the lightnings. That will be also a very dangerous condition for the launch. So today we can see that the weather is very clear, so it is a very good day for the launch.
Well, good to know, and we can see that some dances, drum dances with a local flavor is also happening, and you can see the whole convoy. It is really showing the respect and hope to those Taikonauts, not only from local authorities, space program authorities, but also from the people in this country.
Yeah, you know that's I've been there 4 years before, also in summer. Can you believe that it is the first time in my life that I can see the Milky Way with my naked eyes? So, you know, that's the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center is very close to the Gobi Desert, but the
and we can see that tower in the footage. It's kind of a monument to China's space program, right?
The monument of the flight, the space activities of China.
Yeah. Now they're passing through this tower. Now the 3 Taikonauts for Shenzhou-16 mission are on their way to the launch site. Yes, Professor, you were talking about you've been there, right?
Yes. So they, as Yibing has already mentioned, so from Wentiangge they will take about 15 minutes. Although it is not, you can see that the ground vehicles are very slow. So it takes about 15 minutes to get to the launch pad. It is not very far from the center, but you know that's also there is a vehicle assembly building about 1,500 meters from the launch pad. Also, we have the journalists. We have journalists there. It is most closest place to watch the launch itself.
Coming up is a bridge on their way to the launch.
There is also a river there.
Right. So, Mr. Xu, would you say this is a moment of national pride, because we can see that people are waving the national flag of People's Republic of China there?
I think it's a good ambience that we're farewell to the 3 astronauts going to take the hope and wishes of the Chinese people to the station. I think it's a historic moment, and also the civilians are traveling through space. And also, as Professor Yang mentioned, there's a vertical assembly building near the launch pad, 1.5 kilometers away to the launch site.
Yes, that still a little bit way to go to the launch site, but it's really in sight. Now they're passing this bridge. It's called the Rainbow Bridge at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. Its official name is the Shenzhou Friendship Bridge. It looks like a sailing ship. It was designed into that, right?
We do see the rainbow at this moment.
Excuse me?
We do see the rainbow.
Oh
shape
yes, exactly,
of the bridge,
exactly. And it symbolizes China's journey of exploring the outer space.
It is not only the place China launched its Shenzhou spaceship, but also it is the place China launched its first satellite. So you know that's the 24th of April is named as the Space Day of China because we launched our first satellite, the Dongfang Hong-1, in 1970, just in April the 24th. So. And we can also see the launch pad, the launch complex, which launched the Dongfang Hong-1 or the Changzheng or the Long March 1 launch vehicle. We can still see that monument. So this is also a very meaningful place for the start of China's space industry.
Indeed. Now the 3 Taikonauts are still traveling on this not so long road to the launch site.
So this is a video taken from an unmanned air vehicle. You know that in recent years, it is very interesting that during every launch, not only the launch of the Shenzhou spaceship, but also the launch of other launch vehicles, including those from the private companies, we always use this unmanned air vehicle in this Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center to monitoring the liftoff. So they have very good eyesight.
You mean using drones?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Using this kind
but from Of course, from a safe distance.
Exactly, from a safety,
And
not
what's the
on the
purpose
route
of
of the launch vehicle.
Yes, and what's the purpose of that?
To monitor the whole situation more comprehensively.
I think the view is spectacular with the drone. If you take from a higher ground to see the launch itself, it's very spectacular.
Right.
And also we noticed that there's some subtlety and changes in the astronauts' dressing. We used to have a very
really?
Small box and suit with the
That
suit.
is a ventilation
Yeah,
device.
and this time we don't see it's very. Yeah.
And it's kind of an open helmet routine for this type.
But you
right?
still need it
Ventilation.
in the ventilation process.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably built in rather than hand carried.
Exactly.
And also some changes in the boots, some subtleties and changes in the astronaut suits. So we're
Well,
seeing
interesting to
some
know.
progress.
Is that an upgrade from earlier versions of the outfit?
Definitely, it's an upgrade. I think it's you have hands free, and you can do many things instead of carrying a like suitcase shaped things.
You know, that's the IVA or intravehicular spacesuit is, you know, that is to have a very airtight ceiling. So we need this ventilation device when you are on the ground. Only when you are already in the cabin, we can have the ventilation from the spaceship. So when they are on the ground, so they need what Yan-Song has mentioned, the ventilation device. In the years before, they do have this box. So today, I believe that this ventilation device has already mounted on the spacesuit, so their hands are free.
In a much smaller size, I guess.
I believe so.
It's integrated into the suit. Yes.
So every step in China's manned space mission is an upgrade to the earlier one, and I believe it takes the dedication and efforts from all the personnel and staff in this industry.
We have a team of experts and institutions that is doing on daily basis to improve the spacesuits, the rocket itself. We understand there are 17 improvements in the rocket itself, and also the launch and telemetry and control and all the systems. We are constantly evolving and changing and change for the better.
Right, as we're talking about this, the 3 Taikonauts are on their way to the Space Launch Center, Satellite Launch Center in Jiuquan. This is a very solemn and very much honored ceremony for country's role models and heroes.
This time, the Shenzhou-16 manned spaceship belongs to a new batch. It is the first one in the new batch of Shenzhou spaceship. They do have some improvement in this batch. For instance, the electronic components used this Shenzhou-16 spaceship is almost 100% made in China. So this is a very important step, not only for the China aerospace, but also, you know, for the electronic industry in China. A very meaningful milestone. And also, you know, that's there to have an interface between the astronauts and the Shenzhou spaceship, which provide the possibility for the astronauts to piloting the ship. So this time the interface will also simplified and improved, so makes it more easier for the astronauts to piloting the Shenzhou spaceship.
More
so
human friendly.
Yeah, exactly. So this time is more convenient for the astronaut. You know that although, as we've already discussed, Mr. Gui Haichao is the payload expert, so he's not responsible for the piloting the Shenzhou spaceship. But indeed, not only Mr. Gui Haichao, but also Mr. Zhu Yangzhu will be trained for the piloting the Shenzhou spaceship. You know, every time during liftoff and during the re-entry, we need at least 2 astronauts to have the ability to piloting the ship.
Indeed, and talking about liftoff, we'll
Yes.
go through the details very soon. The 3 Taikonaut are about to arrive at the actual launch site. And for more on that, let's cross live to our reporter Sun Ye, who is very close to their destination. So Sun Ye, tell us a little bit more about what's going on at where you are.
Hey there, Pandan. Good morning from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. We are also waiting for the Taikonauts coming through here. We haven't seen them yet, but right now you will see we are 1.5 kilometers from the actual launch tower. Right now, the Shenzhou-16 spaceship and the Long March 2 FY-16 carrier rocket, these two are right now wrapped around in that blue rotation platforms. In the next few hours, they are going to slowly come into view. Now, we're really kind of close to that launch tower, and one of the great perks, besides the great views of being here, is that you get to pose your questions to the people who know the mission best. And today we are really lucky to be joined by Miss Xu Shenshen. She's from the China Academy of Launch Vehicle Technology. 谢谢您，徐老师来参加我们这一次抽空来参加我们这个连线哈。现在我们最想问的问题是，从昨天晚上到现在，我们的火箭的状态。
Yesterday to today, how's the status of the rocket? So from or so actually the 12 a.m. this morning, the whole rocket system all on our posts, and the main task for us is that we check again and pre-launch all the systems and functions. And right now, the task undergoing is the final check of the status and also seal the whole system. And just now, the A commander also check the A rotation platform and the A launch tower at floor by floor, platform by platform. When everything ready, we will welcome the arrival of the Taikonaut, because right now Taikonaut are on the way. Very soon they will arrive here. So currently all the systems function well. So during our chat, you mentioned that this is your 7th time participating in launch mission. Still special for you? Yes. So this is my 7th time here, and the launch mission is also different from the previous ones. One, this is the very first launch when we enter into the development and application phase. And that's also the very first time for our 3rd batch Taikonauts join the mission. And also for Long March 2F, also the 20th time for launch. So can we say this? We experienced a lot, but still every mission is different. And we not really can have a close eye on the carrier rocket, but we know Long March 2F actually very, very reliable, right? Yes, indeed. As the designated vehicle for astronauts heading to space, the carrier rocket is very high reliability and safety. So just in a couple hours, we will very soon hear that the checked, everything normal, reliable, everything's ready. Yes, indeed.
那我们就等等，就是这几个小时它的变化。
Okay,
so Miss Xu, she's just assured us in the next few hours we'll keep hearing how the rocket is doing from all the checkups. Maybe you'll hear it too from the broadcast here at the launch center. And right now the Taikonauts, they are on their way here, and I will let you check up on us later. Pandong.
Thank you very much, our reporter Sun Ye at Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwestern China. So, gentlemen, we can see the 3 Taikonauts have arrived at launch tower. Still 2.5 hours to go to the launch. What will happen next, Professor?
You can see that some of the ground vehicles are already around the launch complex, and also you may notice that all the rotational platform is still closed. So it provides a very good condition, such as the air conditioning for the launch vehicle, and also preventing from the influence of the outer environment. So next, you may notice that next, when the astronauts go entering the Shenzhou-16 spaceship and close the hatch, so the platform on the top will first be opened. At this moment, the emergency escape system will come into service, because you know that after the closing of the hatch, if anything wrong happened, the only choice for us is to use the emergency escape system to ensure the safety of the astronauts. And then we can see from bottom to up, the first, the second, and the third rotational platform will be also opened, and the launch vehicle is bending on itself. But still, at this moment, we can see that still there are some rotational arms close to the launch vehicle, because we still have connections on electricity, gas, and also other monitoring devices to monitoring all the status of the launch vehicle. Only about several seconds before the launch, the last rotational arm will be plug off, and the vehicle will all on its own. So this is a really long and very complex procedure. During this procedure, we will have all kinds of checkings of every subsystem, not only of the launch vehicle, the Shenzhou spaceship, but also on the other system. For instance, the telemetry, telecontrol, and the communication system, the landing site system, and also other important systems.
Right, so Mr. Xu, it looks like it's not only about code data and engineering, but ultimately it's about the utmost safety of human lives, right?
As Jiuquan has just mentioned, that this is a human-rated launch vehicle, and so life support system is very important. Safety system is very important. So sequence is, of course, unlocking a lot of things and arming a lot of things. Right now, we're going to see the disembark of the astronauts from the vehicle, and then there's a lot of salutations before they go to the lift, and then go to the top of the launch vehicle, and then they're going to enter the hatch or the capsule of Shenzhou. And so that once the astronauts are in the vehicle, safety system has to be armed. So escape routes, and a couple of escape routes has been indicated out. We know there's a slide down tube from the top of the tower, so that the astronauts, in case of emergency, can slide down to the bunker underneath. And then there is also, once the astronauts are
right, and talking about Taikonauts,
yes,
they are about to enter the launch tower. Walking in front is Mr. Jing Haipeng, the commander and pilot of the Shenzhou-16 mission van, Mr. Zhu Yangzhu, flight engineer, and Mr. Gui Haichao, payload expert. Oh, so they're still having that ventilator equipment we were talking about.
But it's smaller size.
Much smaller. And a little bit change in color as well, I guess.
And the boot has also changed from gray to white.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right, and now they're going to take an elevator to the capsule, I guess.
Yeah, it's 9 floors to the top, and then they're going to be assisted by the engineers and workers to slide into the capsule itself, one by one.
Slide into the capsule,
Yeah.
you mean?
There's one like sliding board that the astronaut has to go into a horizontal shape, and then slide into the capsule, and then descend from the service module to the capsule itself, to the recovery capsule.
Right. So now they're taking an elevator.
At this moment, the ground staff mainly comes from the astronaut system and the Shenzhou spaceship system. So the astronaut system, they will help the astronauts to check the status of their IVA spacesuit and also do all kinds of service for them. And also the staff from the Shenzhou spaceship will help the, as Yan Song has already mentioned, will help the astronauts to go into the Shenzhou spaceship. You know that there is a hole on the payload fairing of the Long March 2F rocket, and also just opposite the side of the side hatch of the orbital module. So they will come inside the Shenzhou spaceship from this orbital module, and then, as Yan Song has mentioned, go down to the re-entry capsule. First, it's very interesting that Mr. Jing Haipeng will be the last one to enter the Shenzhou spaceship because he sits in the middle. So only the we usually call the 03 on the 02 will go first entering the Shenzhou spaceship.
And now we're seeing this spectacular shot from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. Mr. Xu, is this the longest serving launch site in China?
Indeed, as Professor mentioned, that we launched the first satellite from China from this very site.
Oh, the Taikonauts are walking out of that elevator. So where are they heading now?
So I think
into
they're
the
heading
sliding
to,
board.
They're heading through to the sliding board. The sliding board, in fact, is a bridge between the fairing and the core segment. And the core segment is, of course, is the service module and the recoverable capsule, and it's covered by a fairing. Fairing is only used for the first phase of the launch. Once it's in outer space, the fairing will be deployed, and the core will be exposed. So the bridge is between the fairing and the core segment. So there's a hole on the fairing for the astronauts to go through, and there's a sliding board in between. So the staff is helping the astronauts to go in one by one. So they're going to be next. I think you were going to be seeing the astronauts sitting down on the red chair.
Right.
Very traditional red chairs.
Yeah.
And
You
then
can tell it is Chinese. It's really typical. I mean,
the foldable chair is very popular. It was very popular in the 70s and 80s.
yes.
You can see the words on the suits of the ground staff ACC, which means the Astronaut Center of China.
Right.
Yeah. So
They're in charge of
they
everything.
are, as I mentioned, they belong to the astronaut system. The astronaut system is in charge of the training of the astronauts and also in charge of the development of the IVA and the EVA spacesuits. So they will check everything, check the status of their spacesuit, and also helping the and also some of them are in charge of the medical cares. So some of the astronaut system, the ground staff will very busy at this moment.
So they're waiting, still waiting for some kind of order now?
Well, I think they're waiting for the hatch to be opened and everything's really, the sliding board to be placed, and the assistant has to go in first to help the descending of the astronauts. So the first person has to go into the service module and get ready everything before the astronaut can be sliding in. So when Professor Yang mentioned there's a astronaut system, the word system means that we have, this is the manned mission is a system engineering. We have 7 or 8 systems to be integrated into one. So astronaut is one system. The launch vehicle is one system. The search and rescue is one system. The telemetry tracking and control is one system. So there are many systems has to work together. So in the witness of the launch, you will see the sequence of the different systems working together. The astronaut.
Talking about working together. Are
They
they changing
are
boots,
helping
and
the
why?
astronauts to take off their boots because the boots is no longer needed in a microgravity environment.
Right. So are they wearing some kind of space shoes, if that's the right word, or kind of socks?
Part of the suit itself.
Okay.
Yeah. So it has to be sealed. So the suit is airlocked. So when you have in emergency cases, you have a pressurized suit that you can close the helmet and you still have the atmosphere pressure in the suit. So that is for one emergency cases. So that boot is for that particular purpose.
They're waving to us. They're waving to us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they look quite confident for such a big moment. What does it take to go through that mental training? Because normal people would just faint, I would say.
Well, I think the first astronaut, Yang Liwei, was chosen because his psychological is so stable, so that the heart rate and everything is so you have to be very strong in your willing, and you have to be very stable in your psychological conditions. And to go traveling in space is a huge challenge to psychological aspect, because you're staying there not for 1 or 2 days, you're staying there for 6 months. So that is a long duration. That is very challenging, and also for your characters and your partnership to your people around you. How do you work together? This is very challenging to all the astronauts, sustainably staying longer in outer space.
As you mentioned, this is the 4th mission of Mr. Jing Haipeng.
Right.
And some of our Taikonaut has mentioned that one of very tough thing for them is to repeat their trainings again and again and again. So that is sometimes it is boring, but they must do it. So that is also a very a great difficulty for them to meet.
Right. So they're still waiting for the preparation.
Yes,
To
there's
enter
still
in the capsule.
at this moment they still have some ground staff inside our Shenzhou spaceship to do the last preparation works for them. For instance, you know that we have many cargoes in the orbital module at the front of the Shenzhou spaceship, because you know that Shenzhou spaceship is composed of 3 modules. At the front is the orbital module, in the middle is the re-entry capsule, and then at the bottom is the propulsion module. So in the orbital module, because you know that today is not different from the Shenzhou-7 missions and the previous missions, because today the Shenzhou spaceship is a crew transportation system for the Tiangong Space Station. So in the orbital module, we do not need the astronaut to live there for a very long period. So we have a lot of goods, several hundred kilograms inside this orbital module. For instance, maybe some fresh fruit for the astronaut, and also some other biological and other samples for the scientific research on the Tiangong Space Station.
So we've talked quite a lot about Mr. Jing Haipeng 4 times in space. What about the other 2 first timers? How much will this be a challenge for them? Of course, they're well prepared and trained.
Well, they were selected a year ago. They have gone through 1-year training. I think these 3 has been worked very closely together at the training center. And the first timers, they were first experienced a few G's of the rocket boost, and then there will be microgravity experiments, which is very exciting at the very beginning. And then you get your kick in the physical changes in your body. As Professor Yang mentioned, that there will be astronauts will experiencing swollen tongues because blood pressure is going to different areas and directions.
Right, is that part of the sliding board
That
you
is
were
exactly
talking about?
the sliding board.
Right,
That's
right.
what I mentioned.
And they're transporting some device into that. Is
There's
that
one person inside already, so they're
Yeah.
putting something in. So when you see the person standing next to the person who's standing is the fairing itself, the white part.
Yeah.
Is the fairing, and then the bridge is the board is connected to the service module hole. So in between the fairing and the service module is the board itself, the sliding board.
We can just hear the voice of the commander of the launch mission to confirm that every subsystem is okay.
Every subsystem
Yeah.
is okay. So that's obviously a good sign, right?
Yeah, you can hear the voice, the replies from the ground stations along the trajectory.
So that means that the ground station has to keep a full-time tracking of the Shenzhou spaceship, because the spaceship is traveling in different altitude and different areas. Once you're out of the horizon, you cannot see it, but there's a downstream line of stations that is keeping track of the Shenzhou spaceship, because the crew information is very important, and also life support system requires all this to be a real-time connection between the spaceship and the ground station.
Right. And now the person or the persons now inside the capsule will come out.
Yes.
After everything's well prepared.
He's just assisting. Yes, he will be. The only 3 person left will be the 3 astronauts in the capsule.
After entering the capsule, the 3 Taikonauts will still have about 2 hours to go, so they will just be sitting there.
There will be
And
a
doing
sequence of
preparations.
checking in cooperation with the ground crew, and there is as I said, lots of unlockings and lots of armings. They arm the escape towers, they arm the system that is ready to be.
Indeed, and I heard
That's
the
exercise
commanding
for 5
center,
minutes.
talking about
is
5 minutes ready.
Only for exercise.
Okay.
This is
that's a
rehearsal.
drill.
Oh, that's a rehearsal. Right.
Rehearsal for the real-time launch.
Okay.
So it's a rehearsal for countdown. So the astronauts will stay in the capsule and checking all the equipment. And they have been well trained, I think, to do this, and also to arm the escape tower, as I mentioned. And then will be connected to the ground to communicate on all the system checks and go throughout these whole process of arming and unlocking.
Now this beeping, is that a signal to go?
Rehearsal.
for them to
Simulation
enter?
of the launch.
Okay.
It's a rehearsal, yes.
Okay. So again, even this close to the launch, they're still rehearsing every detail
Yeah.
to that moment.
But the software of the rehearsal and the real launch will be in different status depending on its parameters.
Right. What do you mean by parameters?
Which means that for some is a simulation, the parameter will in a different value comparing with the real launch.
Right. Right.
Now you can see the 0.
It's a different kind of beeping.
Yeah.
The timing is very important, because once you have the liftoff, the rocket is from the Earth, they have lifted, and there is a parameter called root parameter that calculates all the orbit because of the changing and the rotating of the Earth and the rocket traveling. So everything changes when you lift off the Earth. So the route parameter is very important for calculating everything, for navigation purpose, for connection and dockings, and for going to the station. So there's a narrow window for the rocket to be launched at that particular time, so that everything can be adjusted to the docking and rendezvous of the station.
Right.
It is also there is a very interesting fact that in China, our definition of the countdown is different from other countries.
How
you
so?
know that in other countries, the countdown to zero means liftoff, but in China, the countdown to zero means ignition. So in other countries, especially in US, the ignition will be several hundreds earlier than the zero moment. But in China, we have at the countdown to zero, we just ignite. So the liftoff time, every time you may notice a voice from the command. He will report the exact moment of the liftoff.
Right.
So sometimes
That's like Mr. Gui Haichao is the first
ready to be
enter.
slided.
Yeah.
he's going in first.
Yeah. Oh, they're quite confident and relaxed at the moment, right? And we
Exactly.
can see that they're really a team, like working like a
They've
family.
been together for a year, I think, training and eating together.
Yeah.
As mentioned yesterday, they have
This
already,
is the common position to sliding into
Yes.
the capsule. Okay.
as I
And there
mentioned
will
yesterday.
there will still be personnel inside to
Two-man
help them
push,
to.
one-man pull, and then
Right.
he's going to be descending to the. This is the connection of the service module to
Well,
the.
on the left of the screen is a camera of the mounted in the orbital module. So you
Orbital
can see
module.
there's still a ground staff there helping the astronauts to go down.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Now
on the
he's
right
entering
side,
re-entry
the
capsule.
first two windows obviously showing that
Mr.
waiting area. And what about a third one, the lowest
It's the
one
seat.
on the right side of the screen?
Is the capsule seat.
That
Okay.
that is the camera mounted in the re-entry capsule. You can see that Mr. Gui Haichou has already entered the re-entry capsule, and he will sit on the side chair.
And the Taikonauts will need now. This
Now he's
is
sitting
yeah.
there. Yes, he's sitting there.
So talking about sitting, Taikonauts can do it themselves. They don't need extra help to be properly seated.
The seat is built in such a shape that you have to sit in that particular angle. Even the seat is designed for that particular astronauts, because the shape of different astronauts are different, and the seat has to be experiencing lots of G's when launching and landing. So that you have to be fixed very tightly into the seat, and your arms and legs are folded together.
Right. And to be honest, those are not big seats.
No.
No.
They're
Very,
just
very narrow.
Very narrow.
Yeah.
you cannot.
It was designed to be so.
You know that during the development of the Shenzhou spaceship, you know that's the diameter of our re-entry capsule is about 2.3 meters. So that will be easier for us to handling the heating during the re-entry. But today, because our technology has been developed and improved, so for the new generation spaceship of China, it will be much larger than our Shenzhou spaceship. The inner volume of our new generation spaceship will be more than 10 cubic meters. But this, you know, that for the Shenzhou spaceship, the total volume of the
Yes.
orbital module and the re-entry capsule
Now-
is only 7
Now,
cubic meters.
second
Zhu
one
Yangzhu
actually
is
pulled-
entering the
pulled
capsule.
in,
02.
and his leg has been placed to the connection between the orbit module and the capsule itself. So he's descending. He's in sitting position. He's going to be footing on the left, right lower camera. So he's going to be standing on the middle seat before he moved to the side.
Right.
You know that when entering the Shenzhou spaceship, their helmet is easy to collapse with the side edge of the hatch. So the ground staff must help them to avoid this, to protect their helmet.
Okay. So what's the maneuver there? How can they
So
avoid
they will
such
use
an
their
incident?
hand to isolate the edge of the hatch and their helmet.
And that'll be safe.
Yeah, that will be safe. Because you know that the helmet is very, very critical for the airtight sealing to protect them when anything wrong happened to the cabin. If the pressurization happened to the cabin, they will protected by the IVA spacesuits.
Right. Right.
And also, you know, that's
And
after,
Mr. Zhu Yangzhu is
sit on
making
the other
effort
side.
to sit properly on that
Yes.
not so big chair as
No.
we were talking about. Yeah.
You know, as Yan Song has already mentioned, each basin, or each seat of the astronauts were
You're already calling it a
manufactured.
base.
Basin, yeah, exactly. Is designed just according to the physical parameters of the certain astronauts, so they can have the most convenient condition during the launch.
So there was a reporting of the landing of one Russian capsule where there was a Korean astronaut was in it. So the maximum G that the human body can experience is 12 G. So that long landing experienced 13 G.
Now the commander, Mr. Jin Haipeng, is going to enter the capsule. He's waving to us now, showing full confidence. Mr. Xu, just as you said, the commander
Yeah. If you
enters,
sit in the middle.
enters as the last person into the capsule. So the commander sits in the middle, I believe.
You can see that the ground staff.
The
is still
maneuvering
in-
system
Piloting the ship.
is also designed around him.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the key parameters he will see and all the key keys
Right.
he will operate. Yes.
Yeah. All the buttons. All the-
You may notice that the helmet of Mr. Jin Haipeng is very large, and this helmet must be well protected. And finally, the ground.
Aren't all the helmets of the three Taikonauts designed at the same size or not?
Usually, there is no much difference because that's the height of each astronaut. There is no much difference. So the helmet we can have a standard size.
It's not mass produced, but it's standardized.
Yeah. Standardized.
Because you have to have an airlock, and the whole system is to be integrated. So to do a testing for each spacesuit is not practical. So you have to use a standardized production process to make the helmet and the connection part and all the metal parts and the connections.
But it is very interesting, that the third EVA spacesuit brought to Tiangong Space Station with the yellow belt, it is smaller than the other two with the red and blue belt. Blue belt. So only when the third was brought to the station can Ms. Wang Yaping and Liu Yang conduct EVA.
Oh,
it's
right.
smaller for and fit for the
For
female.
female Taikonauts.
Yeah. And after all these three crew members enter the re-entry capsule, the ground staff will help them to close the hatch between the orbital module and the re-entry capsule. And also,
Are they recording or signing off on some kind of a
Yes,
paperwork?
the commander is signing off on the handover of these. So he's checking all the luggage. Let's say luggage,
Right.
all the onboard the piggybacks that he's going to check and sign off the list. So everything is here. He's going to be handed over to the commander, and then the commander is in charge now. So once you close the hatch, everything has to be in the hatch and it's counted for.
and also the checking of the communication between the astronauts and the ground is also a very critical step. You know that if anything wrong happened, we must have a normal communication system which can ensure that the astronaut can report to the ground.
So I'm sure one of the package is with the African paintings. So they're changing the space lab into a international gallery.
Yeah. Space gallery.
Yes.
Is this the first time to do so in China?
计算机已人带到检查，正常。
计算机已人带到检查，正常。
Mr. Jin Haipeng
计算机已人带到检查，正常。
So once
he's
he's
about to
seated,
reach there.
once he's seated, the person will help close the hatch of the capsule, and then they will be rechecking on the locking of the capsule, and then before they leave the fairing and they slide out.
Well, I
The
have to
commander
say,
is
those seats are not exactly big, but they look really, really stable and stern.
Not sofa, but it's not for comfort, but it's for safety.
Yes. So they're built with the strongest material possible.
Has to be also lightweight and also fit the shape and the contour, and also has to be very sturdy.
Okay, hear the voice that the T-3 hours countdown has already been prepared.
Right.
So at this moment, many critical checkings have
And
already
different
been accomplished.
localities are reporting their status.
From all kinds of subsystems.
Yes, yes.
What we just heard is the voice from the Command Zero.
Command Zero.
He is in charge of the whole launch process.
And he's in the Beijing
no,
aerospace.
he is in Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Once after entering orbit or getting out of the atmosphere, then
after the
commanding will be handed over
after
to
the
Beijing.
launch, the command will turn from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center to Beijing Flight Control Center.
Right. They're still using bags.
Yeah.
It's also lightweight.
I think it's for a collection purpose, and then they will be taking them out. I think there are some assisting facilities to be put in the bag before they take it away. So the assistant is taking the bag off the station.
Each astronaut has their private belongings. For instance, the photo of their family members and also their own medicines and also the other things.
Indeed, that's quite necessary, right? It's common practice. They will be on a space trip for almost half a year.
Yeah.
And from earlier missions, we can see that they've also got a chance to even video call their family. That's a really good human touch for them.
They even have internet access.
Right, right.
They can.
And some netizens in China even maybe they're joking that because we know Professor Gui Haochao are still tutoring students, so maybe he will have live streamed space seminars to his students, but that's only a joke.
I think probably a few emails would be be useful, especially when you send it from space.
Yes, yes. That's kind of a souvenir as well, digital souvenir from space, right?
But a very frequent video call with their family members will be very important for their 5 months trip.
What's that cane about? Is that some stick or cane? They were just passing through to the commander.
We didn't notice. So the commander is not fully seated down yet because he's still moving around because his foot has to be in the box in front of him. So there's still something that he's moving around for. I think checking the safety belt and making sure his crew is fully seated, and they're helping each other to connect and disconnect everything. So like the ventilation system, the communications and the power has to be connected to the spacesuit. So they're helping each other to do that. I think one of the cane probably is the adapter for that.
Yeah.
There's now connecting.
That's probably the safety belt.
Yeah. No, this is like a supporting system for like ventilations and heatings in the suit and everything.
Or the sockets, right?
The socket, yes.
Yeah.
So he made sure that everything is connected before he sit down and fasten the belt.
Their medical parameters will also be well monitored by the ground staff, especially the astronaut system.
You're right. So backing up is so important in systematic engineering.
Yeah. We call it redundancy in space. You have to have a system that is going to be a backup to one another.
Right.
Another interesting thing is that that they are very diaper now. But this is specially designed, and that 2 grams of diaper can absorb more than 1 kilograms of urine. So that is also a very typical transfer of space technology to our daily life.
Right. That's indeed high tech.
Yeah.
Passing through orders now. Still reporting status from
T-minus
distance.
2
T-minus 2
hours.
hours.
And counting.
So in exactly 2 hours will be completion. Yes.
Exactly, because it will be launched at 09:31 Beijing time.
Yeah. As I mentioned, the platform, the rotational platform on the top will be
That's the
open first.
escaping tower, right?
Yeah. You can see already in the middle that we can already see the emergency escape tower.
Yeah.
So when as mentioned, when the hatch has already been closed, the emergency system will be in service.
Hopefully that scenario won't appear.
The Long March 2F launch vehicle is the only what we call the human-rated launch vehicle in China.
Right.
This is because the reliability of this launch vehicle is much higher than any other launch vehicle in China. Not only because of the launch vehicle itself, but because it has a very special malfunction detection system, and also this emergency escape system. With these systems, the safety of astronauts can reach to 0.997 in the initial phase. But today, the reliability is further improved.
This is rotating now,
Yeah.
the launch tower.
Yes. So the
It will gradually open, stage by stage.
Very slow.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It will not open once and for all.
And also we have cameras mounted on these rotational platforms to monitoring the what inside the launch complex.
So right now the capsule itself and the launch vehicle is still powered by the ground. So the ground power supply and communications is still connected by the umbilical cord on board the rocket itself. So the swing off has to be very gradual, and only at the final stage that there is a disconnection of the power and everything. So once the rocket is on its own, it has to generate or use its own batteries to sustain the whole space flight.
So once everything is fully checked, the door to the hatch will be properly locked.
I think the door to the hatch has been locked already.
Okay.
And also the fairing hatch.
And only by doing that, the launch tower can be opened.
Exactly. So once you have the capsule locked, so the only escape route is through the escape tower. So the escape booster, the escape tower can take the astronauts to safety,
Right.
landed by parachute. So
And the
this is
Taikonaut are now fully, properly
strapped in,
seated.
yes.
And also fastened their seatbelt.
Right.
You know, that's the emergency escape tower is composed of some solid rocket motors. Some of the 4 of the motors are used to drag the orbital module and re-entry capsule from the launch vehicle and then take it away with a very high speed. And some of the other smaller motors will change the direction of the Shenzhou spaceship to avoid collision of the separated Shenzhou spaceship with the launch vehicle.
Right. You can see everything is still going in a very orderly fashion. Every subsystem, as you were just talking about, going through each and every detail by the handbook, right?
So all the sequence has to be followed, and every parameter has to be correct. And if there's an anomaly, it has to be raising the alarm for even abandoning the launching itself.
Right.
It seems that they are conducting another rehearsal, T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
We're putting on their
Gloves.
space gloves. Yeah. The 3 Taikonauts have entered the capsule.
But this
And now the
moment,
combination of the capsule and rocket is in a full preparation, counting down to the launch at 09:31 Beijing time. That's 01:31 GMT. And of course, CGTN will have live coverage of the Shenzhou-16 manned space mission launch in about an hour. I'm Pandeng in Beijing. Do stay tuned to us.
各号机升崩，第一次综合检查，1分钟准备。50秒。 40秒。30秒。20秒。10、9、8、7、6、5、4、3、2、1，起飞。T0，动拐时3拐分11秒，动6.2毫秒。T0，动拐时3拐分11秒，动6拐毫秒。
座号注意，我是景山。景山出轨根数及分离点参数已发出。东风。
东风收到。
华山。
华山收到。华山出轨根数及分离点参数发出。景山。
景山收到。
东风。东风收到。各号注意，我是东风，各号停。收集第一次综合检查情况。景山。
景山明白。
华山。华山明白。08号。
第一次综合检查正常。
太原。
第一次综合检查正常。
渭南。
第一次综合检查正常。
青岛。
第一次综合检查正常。
酒泉。
第一次综合检查正常。
青山。
第一次综合检查正常。
双城。
第一次综合检查正常。
5号。
第一次综合检查正常。东风，我是景山。
我是东风，景山请讲。
景山、江阴、天路及长江3号第一次综合检查正常。
东风明白。
东风，我是华山。
我是东风，华山请讲。
华山第一次综合检查正常。
东风明白。 北京东风报告。
我是北京东风，请讲。
各号注意，我是东风，收集天地话音检查准备情况。北京。
准备完毕。
酒泉。
准备完毕。
0号，我是东风。
0号到。
话音检查准备完毕。
0号明白。东风，我是0号，航天员进舱后话音检查正常。
东风明白。北京东风报告。
我是北京东风，请讲。
各号注意，我是东风，话音检查正常。北京。
北京明白。
酒泉。
明白。
东风，我是景山。
我是东风，景山，请讲。
景山遥控预置指令已发出。
东风明白。
北京，景山报告。
我是北京，景山请讲。
景山报告，测量船当前海况及2小时准备情况。长江3号海况3级，浪高1.5米，风力2级，能见度15公里。景山、天路、长江3号2小时准备完毕。景山报告完毕。
北京明白。
北京，华山报告。
我是北京，华山请稍等，江阴请讲。北京明白，华山请讲。
华山2小时准备完毕。
北京明白。
各号注意，收集2小时准备情况。0号。
2小时准备完毕。
太原。
2小时准备完毕。
渭南。
2小时准备完毕。
青岛。
2小时准备完毕。
酒泉。
2小时准备完毕。
青山。
2小时准备完毕。
双城。
2小时准备完毕。
5号。
2小时准备完毕。
天仓。
2小时准备完毕。
北京东风报告。
我是北京，东风请讲。
东风2小时准备完毕，报告完毕。
北京明白。
Manned space mission. You're watching live footage from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, and this is in the launch tower. Technicians and ground staff are doing final preparations before the launch time. It's scheduled at 09:31 Beijing time. That's 01:31 GMT. So we're exactly at this moment 1 hour to the official launch of the Shenzhou-16 manned space mission.
各号注意，我是北京，
And technicians and ground staff are doing a final preparation. No details can be missed for this big moment. At this moment, the 3 Taikonauts for the Shenzhou-16 mission, Jing Haipeng, Zhu Yangzhu and Gui Haichao, are well seated and prepared in the capsule, waiting for the launch. And for more insight, we're joined in the studio by Professor Yang Yuguang and Mr. Xu Yansong. So, gentlemen, what are we seeing now, the preparation, Professor?
Well, you can see from this video is on the, as Yansong has mentioned before, the 9th floor of the launch complex. And now we can see that the side hatch of the Shenzhou-16 spaceship has already been closed. And now we can see is the hatch of the payload fairing. So next, the payload fairing will also, this hatch will be closed. And at this moment, if anything wrong happened, we will depend mainly on the emergency escape system.
Right, so no detail can be missed at this moment. So, Mr. Xu, what are the usual routine for the 1 hour countdown?
Well, I think 1 hour countdown is the, as you have just seen, the locking of the capsule and locking of the service module, as well as the orbital module and the fairing itself. Once it's all locked, we'll be having the opening of the hatch, let's say the hatch for the rocket itself, the Shenzhou rocket, and also the integration and testing of all facilities. As I mentioned, that the power will be provided by the ground system until the last minute. We will, the last separation of the arm is the capsule arm itself. So the rest of the arm will be separated. So the last separation is the capsule arm. And then that provides the final route for the astronauts to travel from the capsule to the escape tube. And then there's also routine checkings of the ground facilities and system checks of all launching systems, life support system, astronaut system, as well as search and rescue system that is ready for the emergency cases.
Right, and we've just passed this crucial mark, 1 hour countdown to the launch of the Shenzhou-16 at 09:31 Beijing time, 01:31 GMT. Now for the latest, let's cross live to our reporter Sun Ye. She's standing by at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch site. She's really close to the launch tower. Sun Ye, bring us up to date.
Hey there, Pandan. Good morning again from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. We are 1.5 kilometers from that launch complex, that launch tower. And compared with the last time we were talking, we're now getting a slightly better view of the rocket. You'll see that the top level of that rotation platform, it has removed, revealing the tip of the escape tower. And later, the bottom level of that rotation platform, it will move to, and we will see the boosters. And still later, when the middle part of that is removed, we will be seeing the part where the Taikonauts are staying right now. Now, the Taikonauts, they are already in the cabin now, and they're right now part of the process, the ongoing constant process of checking up. We hear all the systems, they're asking, is everything okay, is everything zhengchang, all the time. And that's the thing that happened before, and I think will be leading up until the final hour. Everyone, every system, they're checking for all the conditions. Now, we've just talked to a spaceship designer, and he said for manned space flights, because it's so important, they cannot only rely on the figures, the numbers, the screens. They have to talk with Taikonauts to hear them and see them move, see their gestures, and that's how weighty this thing is. Also coming from the spaceship designer, he said in a few minutes the spaceship will be powered by itself, essentially be pumped up by its own heart, and that's the whole process we're witnessing this morning too. That is the rocket, the combination slowly frees itself off the tethers on the ground and ready for launch. And again, we will always be here. This is one of the best places to see that launch. You should see the crowd around me. Everyone is jostling for the best spot for photography, and we'll be reporting you and updating you on what we have from here. Pandang.
Looking forward to that. Our reporter Sun Ye at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwestern China. And as we are talking about this, the 3 Taikonauts are now in the capsule. making final preparations. Mr. Xu, it looks like the commander for the mission, Mr. Jing Haipeng, is reading some kind of manual right now.
Yes, they are going through the check menus, and the checklist is just like the airplane taking off. You have to go through all the checkings, and you have to check all the systems that is ready for the takeoff. So the commander in control is doing all that with the assistance of the two astronauts beside them. They're doing the checklist one by one, and they're checking this on a time sequence. You know, as we have the countdown for less than 1 hour. So every minute there's a checkpoint. So they have to tick all this before they're ready to take off.
Let's talk about the shape of the launch tower right now, Professor. It looks like not changed so much compared to about one hour ago. I can see that the part which was embracing the escape tower
Yes.
It's now fully open, but
it's
the
not
rest
fully opened.
is
Only
still closed.
A platform on the top were opened because you know that to make the emergency escape tower exposure to the outside. So this is very important step. But you know that only maybe several minutes later we can see that the other platform will be rotated and finally opened. But still, as I emphasize that even if all the platforms were opened, there still remains some rotational arms, some small arms connected to the vehicle with pipes and also cables to the vehicle. As Yan Song has already mentioned, only several seconds before the liftoff, we can switch the electricity power from the ground to the batteries inside the launch vehicle.
Seconds before, just to confirm that, so seconds before the launch, there will be a switch.
Yeah, maybe 1 minute or even less.
And that's quite enough for this crucial switch.
It's a very crucial one, exactly. You see that before the launch, we must change from the ground power supply to the vehicle itself, and we use the storage batteries.
Right. What about weather right now? It looks sunny, and
It looks clear.
the wind is getting milder from what I saw of the background from the reporter earlier.
It looks very clear now. At this season, it's really a good weather. You see that usually, you know, that in March and April, it will be more windy than today.
Right, right. So weather is also one of the deciding factors for a successful launch, right, Mr. Xu?
Exactly. It's just like airplane. If you're taking off and landing, the shared wind is very crucial for landing. And this is also the same case. You know, if you have gusty wind in the launching side, you have to abandon the launch and find another launching windows. So weather is one of the key elements for playing in this launch window, as we call it, one of the elements. And also, as Professor Yang mentioned about the power cord, the umbilical cord, we call it. Some of the launch vehicles that use so much power that you can see that, for example, the Saturn rocket, the biggest one from US.
And that's the escape tower, right?
Tower. Yeah. The umbilical cord separate even at the liftoff. When the rocket lifts off, the umbilical cord separates. So that, you know, the providing of the power to the launch vehicle is very important because the battery is limited to providing such a powerful system, because, you know, you have to support the life support system, you have to support oxygen supplies to the astronauts, you have to support the electronics control system, the gyros and all the facilities, and all of that depends on electricity, and batteries are limited resource on it. So before the deployment of the solar panel, we cannot announce even the success of the launching activity.
Right, and we've already been waiting for that big and cheerful moment.
You can see this launch complex. We built that in 1990s, so it is a relatively old launch complex. So the launch complex we built in Hainan Wenchang Spacecraft launch site is more advanced than this one. Both this launch complex and the launch complex in Hainan province, we use what we call the triple vertical mode, which means that the launch vehicle will be assembled vertically and transferred to the launch pad vertically and then launched vertically. So in this triple vertical mode, the most important status of the launch vehicle together with the payload will be in constant status. So that will be benefit from this, which can simplify the whole launch process. But you know that in Wenchang launch site, it's more advanced than this one because there is a small service tower together with the launch vehicle. So not only it will be in vertical mode, but also the cables, pipes connected to the vehicle will not be changed from the VAB to the launch pad. So today, I believe that in the future, that this, as we have already discussed during the previous section, this Long March 2F is the only human-rated launch vehicle for China. But in the future, that China is developing the new generation human-rated launch vehicle. It will not only be used for the potential human missions to the moon, but also will be used for the crew transportation to the China's space station. But probably that will be launched in the Hainan province. So the what we call the Long March 10 launch vehicle will have at least two configurations. One is used for the launch of the spaceship to the moon, and the other will be with a single core stage with no boosters, and the capability will be about 14 tons, which will be used to launch 6 to 7 crew members to China's Tiangong Space Station.
Right, we'll be talking about a carrying vehicle later, but now let's turn to the destination of the three Taikonauts at this time, the China Space Station in the outer space. The construction of the China Space Station was completed late last year. Our reporter Zheng Yibing explains its current configuration.
This is the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, where the Shenzhou-16 manned spacecraft is preparing for its historic mission in China's Tiangong Space Station program. What will the Tiangong Space Station look like during this phase? I have here the badge for the Shenzhou-16 mission, which clearly indicates the manned spacecraft will dock with the Tianhe core module of the station from below. The space station will consist of 3 modules and 3 ships. This model represents the Tianhe core module, equipped with 2 berthing ports and 3 docking ports. On the left and right sides, we have the Wentian Lab module and the Mengtian Lab module, while the Tianzhou-6 cargo ship is positioned at the back, and the Shenzhou-15 manned spacecraft is located in the front. Just below is the Shenzhou-16 we mentioned earlier. This configuration resembles the in-orbit transition phase between the Shenzhou-14 and Shenzhou-15 on November 30, 2022. This new combination will have the total mass exceeding 100 tons. It's worth mentioning that although the Shenzhou-15 spacecraft will return to Earth after the brief handover with Shenzhou-16, the China Space Station will quickly return to the 3-module and 3-ship configuration. And why is that? This brings us to the Tianzhou-5 cargo spacecraft, which we witnessed the launching and docking with the station in November last year, as well as its undocking in early May to leave its port for its successor. Currently, it is flying alongside the China Space Station and will dock with the station after the return of the Shenzhou-15 spacecraft. These cargo spaceships have more critical tasks than being simple couriers for space cargo. For example, Tianzhou-5 will provide propellants, solar power, and waste storage for the station in the coming months. The 3-module and 3-ship configuration will remain in place for nearly half a year until the Shenzhou-17 manned mission. Looking ahead, China Space Station will expand with additional modules, so please stay tuned to China Space Exploration and we'll keep you updated. Zheng Yibing, CGTN, in Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
You're watching CGTN. This is our special live coverage on the launch of the Shenzhou-16 manned space mission of China. You're watching live footage from inside capsule. The 3 Taikonauts, Mr. Jing Haipeng, Mr. Zhu Yangzhu, and Mr. Gui Haichao, are well seated, and now they're still preparing for the big moment, the launch of the rocket. So, Mr. Xu, as we just heard from our earlier report, the configuration of the China Space Station, the destination of the 3 Taikonauts this time, it's now in a T-shaped configuration. So that will remain so during the whole Shenzhou-16 mission?
I think yes. The T-shape is the core module Tianhe along with the Wentian and Mengtian that forms the T-shape. As what we call it, back of the spaceship is the cargo ship, and then the Tianzhou, and also the front of the vehicle or the T-shape is the Shenzhou-15. So Shenzhou-16 is going to be docking on the underneath of the T shape. So that forms a configuration of more than 100 metric ton space object in a 400 kilometer per orbit. This 400 kilometer altitude is the areas that also has less atmosphere, but also has what we call atomic oxygen that is very erosive material for spacecraft. So the bombardment of that material to the space station has to be examined because the station is built and designed for 10 years. So that constant checking for the integrity of the station is very important. We know that there's some leakage in the International Space Station, whether it's human error or natural. And also the Russian old station, Mir station, also have some leaking. And so all of these is very crucial for the safety and security of the station and the sustainability of life forms on board the station, including astronauts and experiments.
Now we're watching this countdown clock at Space Flight Command Center at Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. 43 minutes to go till the launch. Mr. Xu, earlier you mentioned the mass of that space object, the China space station, more than 110 cubic meters. This question has been metric meters. Sorry, metric tons. Yes. So this question has been puzzling me for quite a long time. So you mentioned this mass and its weight on Earth, right? But in outer space, it's supposed to be much lighter, and the propulsion it takes should be much smaller than that on Earth. Is that correct?
Yes. Once you're in microgravity environment, weight is not an issue. But there's also in the Earth orbit, you're affected by the Earth gravity, and also there's very thin atmospheres in that orbit, including nitrogens and atomic oxygens and many other materials that drags the spaceship even slower and lower. So the propulsion that used is to lift the spaceship or the station to the proper orbit so that it can sustain in that orbit. So the propulsion is needed on board that mission. So we had experiments done in the previous missions for rendezvous and docking. So that rendezvous and docking, including fueling of the station. Fueling of the station is not easy because once you're in microgravity environment, the fuels are also floating around instead of on its bottom of the container. So the fueling process also is a challenging technology. So we have administered that, and also we have performed successful fuelings, and the cargo ship, in addition to providing food supplies and experimental materials, also provide fueling to the station.
Right, and as we're talking about this, the Shenzhou-16 crew will soon start their stay on the China space station. As we look ahead to their new assignments, let's also look back on what Chinese Taikonaut have achieved in the past 2 decades. Sun Ye has more.
The Shenzhou-16 crew who starts their journey from here are responsible for the first manned space mission since China's space station entered long-term operation. They are the first to arrive at the space station this year, and later this year there will be another Shenzhou crew heading to the space station. So twice every year, 2 Shenzhou crews to the space station. That's the plan. And here are all the Chinese Taikonauts who've made it to space and made all of these possible in just 20 years. Here is Yang Liwei, who in 2003 became the first Chinese man in space.
请先报告测量船当前海况及1小时准备情况。长江3号海况3级，浪高1.5米，风力2级。
And that's Zhai Zhigang, who in 2008 became the first Chinese taikonaut to conduct a spacewalk. And the first female taikonaut is Liu Yang. She went to space in 2012. She stayed there for around 2 weeks. And the first spacewalk by a Chinese female taikonaut is conducted by none other than Wang Yaping. That was in 2021, and memory is still fresh for those of us who tracked how China's space station has come together. And we see Liu Yang again. She's part of the history-making Shenzhou-16 crew. It's the changeover between Shenzhou-14 and 15 crew that officially signal the start of long-term manned residency on China's space station. And by long-term, we're talking about 10 years or even more. This place is really important for Chinese taikonauts. You get the feeling that dream for space is really at the heart of their life on Earth as they live in a place called Quest for Space. And every time before launch, they are first here on the square called Dreams Come True. With so much live streaming and videos from the Taikonauts these days, we feel like we know them. But maybe we will never really understand what drove them to set those milestones one after another. And we may never really know what it feels like in space. So we talked to one former NASA astronaut to understand what lasting changes experience in space has on them.
Almost everybody talks about how fragile our planet is when they come back, our thin atmosphere, and the effects of pollution, the effect of humans that you can see from space. That's one change. Another change for most people who have flown to space is how you view your place on planet Earth. So I used to tell people, I'm from Cleveland, and this is how I identified myself. Today, if you would ask me where you're from, I say I'm from Earth. And it doesn't matter to me anymore what city, state, country, continent, language, religion. None of that matters. Like we're all Earthlings here.
Chinese taikonauts have said in space and on the ground that their space dream and the unending exploration is for the good of all humankind. And that's perhaps one thing we can understand about Chinese taikonauts. Sun Ye, CCTV, Jiuquan.
You're watching live footage from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, and we can see that the launch tower is gradually opening, and now we can see parts of the launch vehicle right now, Professor.
Yes, as I mentioned, the first step is to open the platform on the top, and then the second step is to open the platform at the bottom. Now you can see the bottom platform has already been opened. We can already see the 4 rocket boosters of the Long March 2F. Actually speaking, the Long March 2F is what we call a 2.5 stage rocket, which has a core stage with a diameter of 3.35 meters and 4 rocket boosters, each with a diameter of 2.25 meters. And each of the booster use 1 rocket engine, which is the same as the core stage, while the core stage use 4 of these engines. So at the ignition of the launch vehicle, 8 engines in total will be ignited.
Right. So what's the half part about? 2.5.
Half means the 4 boosters.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the core stage has 2 stages. The second stage has 1 rocket engine and 4 vernier engines.
Right.
The main engine is same type of engine comparing with the first stage, but in a different version, which calls it as a vacuum version engine, which only work in the vacuum conditions. So the thrust will be higher, and the specific specific impulse will be higher. And the 4 vernier engine will be used to control the directions of the flight. And also the launch sequence is that the main engine on the second stage will shut down first, and then the 4 vernier engines will adjust the trajectory very precisely to ensure the orbit is accurate enough, and then shut down.
Right, now we're almost 35 minutes to the launch, and the opening of the launch tower is starting at this moment. The bottom of the rocket is now in the open air. Mr. Xu, what's the consideration here, opening the launch tower gradually, so close to the launch time? Is there some kind of thermal control consideration in terms of keeping the propellant at its best form?
I think the opening of the hatch is the indication that everything is going smoothly and there's no anomaly occurred in this process. Otherwise, it would not be opening. So that is the preparation of the launching. The propulsion system does not need to have a precise temperature that needs to be kept for ignition, because the fuel it's using is very traditional fuel, what we call it UDMH and nitrogen tetroxide. These two materials, once met, will be self-combusted. We do not need any sparkling to ignite this whole thing.
And they're quite stable at this stage.
What we call the traditional fuel is very stable. So, but it's also highly toxic. So once ignited, it will be a good fertilizer instead of toxic oxygen.
Right, but that could be another story for solid propellant rockets.
The only mixed propulsion launch vehicle of China is Long March 6. Long March 6, the core stage of the Long March 6 uses liquid propellants, while its four boosters are solid ones, as you mentioned. But you know what Yan Song has mentioned is called a hypergolic propulsion system, which is different from the cryogenic propulsion system. In the cryogenic propulsion system, such as those used in the Long March 7 and 5, the propellants are in very low temperature. But for this Long March 2F, which uses a hypergolic propulsion system, the propellants, as Yan Song mentioned, the UDMH and the NTO are working in room temperature. So it's convenient to use. And also, moreover, you see that it do not need a very specific ignition system. When the NTO meet with the UDMH, they can burn automatically. So that is why it is very convenient use. But honestly speaking, the performance of this hypergolic propulsion system is lower than the cryogenic propulsion system, and also it is not environmental friendly.
I see. But each of them have their own advantages.
Exactly.
So they're still all in use.
That's the Long March 2 series, Long March 3, and Long March 5. All these use the traditional hypergolic propulsion system. So they are already being very practical in utilizing these launch vehicles. Until today, still, most of the satellites were launched into orbit with these series.
Indeed. Practical is the key word here, cost effective.
But in the future, the new generation launch vehicle, including Long March 5, 6, 7, will play a major role in China's space activities.
Right, good to know, good to know. So, the three Taikonauts, this is live, by the way. The three Taikonauts are in the capsule still reading manuals, I guess, Mr. Xu?
Yeah.
Yes, I think they're still going through the checklist. I think these will be done throughout this whole process. Even after liftoff, they're still going to be holding this thing, so they will be seeing that everything is going smoothly.
And that yellow / gray thing is the luggage, as you earlier described, right?
I would presume that these two big bulky things behind the commander is the parachute package.
Right,
No.
right.
It's not the parachute package. It's some of the other luggage you mentioned for the mission itself, but some also there are some cargoes for the landing. For instance, if there is an emergency landing in a wild place, they need guns. And they need food. They need other water and
I think
so
this yellow part probably is the raft that you're going to be used
Quite right.
when you land on water.
splash down in the sea.
Yeah.
Right, right.
And also, you know that the position of the center of the mass of the re-entry capsule is also very critical for the safe landing. So it must be well adjusted.
So that it does not tumble when it's landing.
Now we can see clearly the bottom of the rocket with
exactly.
4 engines, right? And we're still waiting for the opening of the middle part of the of the rocket. And this is the command and control center at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
Just on the
Just one, bear with my curiosity. I was always wondering why so many rows at these commanding centers, and each and every one is so busy. What's that all about? It's so has to be so precise that one person for one specific duty.
Exactly.
launch.
I was there, as I mentioned, 4 years before. So at each monitor, at each seat, there is a person in charge of a certain system.
Yeah.
For instance, as Yan Song have already mentioned, we have the telemetry, telecontrol, and communication system. Maybe several persons are in charge of this system, and some of in charge of the system communication with the other ground stations, and some of them are in charge of the status, monitoring the status of the astronauts, so they can monitoring the biological parameters of the astronaut by the remote sensing data. And also we have the ground staff from the industry who are in charge of the monitoring the status of the Shenzhou Space Station.
Indeed, as we're talking about this, I believe those ground staff are reaching another crucial mark to the launch. That's almost, yes, that's right, the 30-minute countdown to the launch, and we can see the countdown clock is there. Okay, we've already passed that mark. So that means we're really close to the launch of the Shenzhou-16 right now. And for more on that, let's cross live to our reporter Wu Lei, standing by at the Beijing Aerospace Command and Control Center. Hello, Wu Lei, bring us up to date.
Hello, Pandeng. We are now at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. This is a command and information exchange center for many, flight manned missions as well as lunar and Mars exploration missions. And this time for the Shenzhou-16 mission, as you can see behind me, the Shenzhou-16 crew are now ready in the spaceship, and all the ground team, control team here are still standing by. And I heard many times of the voices of the Beijing copy, the main operator of the dispatch team here at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. They have been talking with different teams, including those in different locations on Earth, and also talking with crew of Shenzhou-15 now in orbit. So after lifting off, the Beijing Aerospace Control Center will take control of the whole monitoring and commanding and information exchange missions with the other teams. So they will closely monitor the flight and other status of the spaceship, and to keep a close eye on the flight status and make sure that the spaceship will dock with below of the Tiangong core module. So this time, Shenzhou-16, for last time, it takes about 6.5 hours for the Shenzhou spacecraft to dock with the Tiangong core module. And this time we will be here and standing here for more information, because we know that every year after the China's Tiangong Space Station has been operational, every year there will be 2 crewed missions to have a long-term operation of our space station. So every 6 months, there will be a rotation. And today, after about 6.5 hours, Shenzhou-16 crew will enter the Tiangong Space Station. They will have another historical meeting with the Shenzhou-15 crew. And 6 astronauts or Taikonaut will stay in orbit for some days, and then the Shenzhou-15 crew are expected to back on Earth, and Shenzhou-16 will stay there for about 6 months. So the ground team here, control team, will keep a close eye on the latest about their flight. Pandeng.
Thank you very much, our reporter Wu Lei at the Beijing Aerospace Command and Control Center. Now you're watching live footage from the launch tower at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. As we can see, that the middle part of the rocket is appearing now, right, gentlemen?
Yes. What we see now is a video from the camera mounted on the rotational platform.
So yeah, this particular shot is from the camera mounted on the launch tower, rather than
on the rotational
drone,
platform.
Right? Yeah.
So you can see that the platform is leaving the payload fairing.
Yeah.
So you can see that there are grid fins folded on the payload fairing, which is used to stable the emergency escape system.
Those are the folded things are kind of a stabilizer.
Grid fins. Yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
right.
You can call that stabilizers.
Yeah, stabilizers.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, that's the emergency escape system is composed not only the tower, but also we have rocket engines on the payload fairing. So you know that after liftoff, the first separation will be the jettisoning of the emergency escape tower. After that, if anything wrong happened, it will be based on the rocket engine, the solid rocket engines on the payload fairing.
Now we can see the whole rocket, a Long March 2F.
Yeah. So the Long March 2F have a very long history. It is based on the Long March 2E rocket. The Long March 2E is the first launch vehicle in China which have strapped-on boosters, the side boosters. And the capability of the Long March 2E is also, it is very interesting. First, it was designed for commercial market, for launching the satellite from other countries, because the capability can reach to 8.8 tons. So it was used to improve and then into this Long March 2F launch vehicle in 1990s. And the capability of the Long March 2F is different because it has two versions. One is used for launch this Shenzhou spaceship, which has an emergency escape system. So the capability is about 8.1 metric tons.
Indeed, and we can see that white blue building a little bit far away from the launch pad.
That's
the
vehicle assembly building, VAB.
Yes. And once assembled, the rocket, the combination to be precise, will be transported to the launch tower through
1.5 kilometers away.
Right.
And it is very interesting, you know, that's Shenzhou-16 and together with the Long March 2F Y17 launch vehicle is in this building now, Shenzhou-17.
Oh, right.
Yes. So this combination of the Shenzhou-17 and the Long March 2F Y17 launch vehicle is used as a backup of this Shenzhou-16.
Well, talking about redundancy, right?
Yeah.
So it's a good picture that you can see the vertical assembly tower and the reel that in between the launch pad and the tower. So that is what we call the triple rib vertical to frozen, what we call frozen the technical parameters of the rocket. So it's, if you vertically assemble the rocket, vertically launching is the theoretically less troubleshooting status for the rocket itself.
And the diameter of the payload fairing is about 3.8 meters. And also, as I mentioned, there is another version of the Long March 2F, which have a larger payload fairing with a diameter of 4.2 meters, which is used to launch the Tiangong 1 and the Tiangong 2 space laboratories. So it has two versions, because you know that in that missions, we don't need the ensure the safety of the astronauts. It's unmanned, so some of the emergency escape systems are omitted, so the capability of the launch vehicle can reach to 8.6 metric tons.
Right.
But interestingly, this is the only thing that is launched from Jiuquan for the space station. The rest of the segments, including the cargoes, the Tianhe, the Wentian, and Mengtian, are all launched from Hainan site.
Is that the same story to Tianzhou cargo vessel?
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. All of these are station construction as well as the cargoes are from Hainan launch site.
And the latitude of this Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center is about 40 degrees. So that is the reason why we choose the inclination of our Tiangong Space Station. Inclination means that the angle between the orbital plane of the Tiangong and the equator. So we choose 41.5 degrees as the inclination of our orbit. This is a major reason, because the latitude of the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center is about 40 degrees. And also there are other advantages. As we have already discussed, the climate of the Jiuquan Satellite Center is very dry here. So in most of the days the weather is fine. And also you know that along the trajectory of the Long March 2F, if anything wrong happened, in most cases the emergency landing will happen in the mainland of China. So that will be easy for the rescue teams.
Now, speaking to CGTN, former NASA astronaut Donald Thomas shared his thoughts on China's space development program and explains why everyone works as a team in space.
China's space industry has changed so much in the last 3 years. What have you been looking at?
Yeah, I've been carefully watching the Chinese space program probably for the last 10 years. When the U-2 rover was on the moon, that's when I started watching, and I've just watched the growth of it, and the accomplishments have amazed me. Particularly Chang'e 5, bringing back some lunar soil. You know, totally successful mission. And I've watched the manned spaceflight program has been so rapid. That has really impressed me, how quickly they've developed in building of the Tiangong Space Station.
On the ground, there are geopolitical tensions. Will that affect international cooperation in space?
I'm all for peaceful purposes of space. And that's what I want to see. I've seen the competitive part of space during the space race. I've seen the cooperative part, and I prefer the cooperative. Because even though we have political differences down here on Earth, in space, we work together and we have friendships. We've been working, the United States, have been working with the Russians for 30 years or more, you know, on the International Space Station. And even though politically on the ground we are hitting heads, in space we're a team.
Now, this is the live footage from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, the weather reading here. And also a little bit more updates from the international attention. Elon Musk, CEO of SpaceX, says China's space program, I'm quoting now, is far more advanced than most people realize. Musk made remarks in response to a post on Twitter by Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield. In a tweet, Hadfield cited Wu Weiren, chief designer of Chinese lunar exploration program, who forecast a Chinese Taikonaut on the moon by the year 2030. So, gentlemen, China's lunar program. So the timeline is quite clear now. It's by the year 2030. So hopefully it will be a little bit earlier than that, maybe.
Hopefully. I think Professor Yang has mentioned that we have developed a new generation capsule that is capable of containing 6 to 7 astronauts at one time. And also we have launch vehicles and capabilities. There are many means to go to the moon. As the American astronaut mentioned about the Chang'e missions, we are taking samples back to Earth. That is just a miniature process of the manned mission, because if you can take samples back to Earth, enlarge that, you can take a man to Earth, to the moon and back. So that is the whole demonstration process for the manned mission. And I'm quite confident that with the technologies of, you know, in-orbit configurations and docking rendezvous, the moon is not so far.
Right, and obviously we need a larger rocket, right, Professor?
Mr. Pandong, you know that yesterday during the press conference of the Shenzhou-16 mission, Mr. Lin Xiqiang mentioned that we will walk on the moon before 2030. That is very, very exciting news.
Yeah.
So we confirm the schedule. You know that we are confident about this because you know that as we've already discussed, many of the technologies used on the new generation launch vehicle and the new generation spaceship are based on the current spacecraft. For instance, the 5-diameter launch vehicle, you know, that's the core module. You know the core stage of the Long March 5 is with a diameter of 5 meters. So it means that if we use this 5-meter diameter, we can use most of the infrastructure utilized for the Long March 5 series in this manufacturing of the Long March 10. So that will be one of the very important advantage of this developing this lunar launch vehicle. Moreover, you see that currently, as we have already discussed, the new generation launch vehicle, Long March 5, 6, 7, use the rocket engine called YF-100 series, which have a thrust about 120 tons. So this engine is also improved with the technologies that it can be smaller. And with this improvement, 7 engines can mount it on the 5-diameter stage. So it can have a very large thrust. And if we mount 3 these kind of 5-diameter core stages together, it will form a new launch vehicle with a liftoff mass of more than 200 and 100 metric tons, and with a liftoff thrust about 2,700 metric tons. So this will be big enough to send a spacecraft to the moon with a mass more than 27 metric tons. So with 2 these kind of launches, we can send the spaceship to the moon and the lunar module to the moon, and they will dock on the lunar orbit and then conduct a walk on the moon.
And also on Monday, after that press conference announcing China's lunar program timeline, I also see that China's Manned Space Authority have open to the whole society, calling for designs of a lunar rover, right?
Yes, I think lunar rovers are what we call it, probably robotic missions. As we have already seen in the Chang'e mission, we have from Chang'e 1 all the way to Chang'e 5, and that will continue to Chang'e 6 and 7. That has already been approved by the State Council for implementation. So the Chang'e mission is the prelude of the manned mission, and that design of facilities needs to be coherent with the manned mission in future.
Indeed. Now let's get back to Earth a little bit and focusing on the rocket. Another crucial mark is about to come up, I believe, as the Taikonauts are still preparing for the launch.
15 minutes.
Yes, we're approaching the 15-minute countdown to the launch. We can see the countdown clock at Command Center. Now it's the 15-minute countdown. We've passed that crucial mark. So we can see now the launch tower is fully opened. Yep. I can still see that the rocket is still held by some kind of arms, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you can see still some arms are very close to the fuselage of the core stage.
And let's take a closer look at the site, and let's cross live to our reporter Shuya standing by very close to the launch tower. Shuya, bring us up to date.
Hey there, Pendant. Again, we are 1.5 kilometers from that launch complex, and we'll see the rocket itself. It's almost free of all its tethers, all its link to the ground, and right now it's almost standing free, and that means it's almost ready to go. As you said, we are minus 15 minutes from that launch. We heard the Zero commander say all of those things, including he's asking all the people to evacuate from that launch area, and we've seen cars, the final batch of cars getting away from the launch pad. It means we're really, really close to the launch, and we've been talking to experts from the rocket system, from the spaceship system. Everything is ready, everything is set. But even though the people have been evacuated, actually not everything can be moved away so close from the launch pad. And now I have actually a small viewing tip for you. Now 50 meters, just 50 meters from that launch pad, there is a tree. And for the last 25 years, it has withstood fires, withstood burns from the rocket launch, and every year afterwards, it is reborn. And people here from the launch center say this really showcased the tenacity, the spirits of this launch center, really also of China's manned space development, that tenacity that they will also carry on into their future missions. So in a few minutes, in 15 minutes actually, if you can take your eyes off the Taikonauts, if you can take your eyes off the rocket and the spaceship, go look for that tree. But for now, everything here, from what we see, what we've heard, they are ready, they are set for the launch, and we will wait for that and see it with you. Pandong.
Thank you very much. Our reporter Shuya at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. So, gentlemen, we can see that a convoy of vehicles are now leaving the launch tower site. That means we're really in the final stage to the launch, right?
We must count each of the person are not missed.
Right.
So that is really, really important for the ensure not only the safety of the astronauts, but also ensure safety of our ground staff.
So all those technicians, ground staff, assistants we see earlier helping the Taikonauts or checking out the equipment, they have all left.
Yeah.
15 minutes and 1.5 kilometers. That's the clearance of the launch. And also there are bunkers underneath. There's some assistance helping the astronauts for the final preparation. They will leave, I think, just shortly before 5 minutes. These are last people. They will be hiding in the bunker. They will not leave the scene.
There will be no time to travel 1.5 kilometers.
From away, yes.
Right.
So they will hide in the bunker, but that is the whole process. The personnel will leave 15 minutes just before the launch.
Right.
You can see that the two astronauts is still reading the menu.
Right. Now we're about 11 minutes to the launch of the Shenzhou-16. And they're confirming the estimated ignition time, right?
Yes, what we call this is a zero launch window.
Okay.
Because it has a very strict requirement, because this launch is not an independent one. The object, the destination will be the Tiangong Space Station. So the basic requirement is to that when the Shenzhou spaceship comes into orbit, it must be in the same orbital plane with the Tiangong Space Station. So this is a very strict requirement to our launch vehicle. So we mastered this zero launch window technology on the Shenzhou-8 mission during in 2011. But today, we furtherly improved the technology from the zero launch window to narrow launch window. Because you know that we have some design margin. So the capability of the launch vehicle is stronger than needed. So we can use this design margin to expand the launch vehicle from within 1 second to several seconds. So this is another improvement from the zero launch window to the narrow launch window.
Well, it has to. Every second matters in space program, right? Because for common people like me, it's just just a click of the clock's arm, but it will make whole difference in space, right?
It's quite critical. You know that if the orbit is not accurate enough, you know that the propellants in the Shenzhou spaceship is limited. So if the orbit is not accurate enough, it will has no chance or miss the chance to dock with the Tiangong Space Station. They do have this kind of examples in other countries. You see during the maiden flight of the Starliner spaceship made by Boeing, because of it missed a very critical step of the ignition, so it missed a chance to dock with the International Space Station. This do happen before. So that is the reason why we must confirm the accuracy of the orbital parameters before we announce the success of the launch.
Look at those audience at the side. They're waiting. They're waiting for that a big moment.
You may notice that from this video we can see that at this moment still the face window of the helmet is still opened now. So it is not necessary to protect themselves. But several seconds before the launch, the 3 astronauts will close their helmet. So this IVA spacesuit can provide the second protection to them to the very fatal vacuum condition.
Right. So you're watching live footage from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. This is inside a capsule, the Shenzhou-16 spacecraft.
The liftoff thrust of the Long March 2F is about 600 metric tons. So it's a very powerful launch vehicle. As I have mentioned, the mass of the Shenzhou spaceship is about 8.1 metric tons. So it is a very big spacecraft, and the launch vehicle will work for about 10 minutes, both the first and the second stage, and then it will entering the orbit maybe at the eastern coast of China, very close to Qingdao.
Right, and once they are in the outer space, they're waiting for that called fast docking process.
Exactly.
This time. What does fast docking mean? What is a slow docking anyway?
Well, slow docking, normally we had docking that took more than 20 hours. You know, once you, like Professor Yang mentioned, that you have to have the right inclination. That's the orbital plane. The inclination means that's you're traveling on the right track. And then there's an element of the altitude. You have to go to the right altitude to catch up with the station. The station is traveling at 7.6 kilometers per second. That is very high speed. And you have to travel in such a way that you have to maneuver and dock with the station. That all the element plays very important.
Gentlemen, I think the Shenzhou-16 crew are now watching the upcoming launch from the space station.
They are watching the live coverage.
Yeah, it's on your right, on your screen's right side, and so we've got live footage from 2 so different places. One's on Earth and one's in space.
Traveling at 6.7.
We can achieve this because we have the Tianlian data relay satellite.
Okay, so now, it's a two-way system,
two-way
right?
video transfer.
Yeah, so that's why we can see live streaming from inside the China space station right now. So I believe with this, the fast docking, how long it will take this time?
roughly, fast docking is roughly 6 hours.
6 hours.
I think.
So let's say in a little bit more than 6 hours.
Yes, I think this
the 3 Taikonauts inside the China space station will meet 3 new colleagues.
They'll meet for dinner.
In space.
So the fast rendezvous and docking raise a very strict requirement to the launch window. You know that several days before we just conducted an orbit maneuver to raise the orbit of the Tiangong Space Station. This can be recognized as a very important preparation for today's launch, because you know that the fast rendezvous docking can only be satisfied when the relative position of the 2 spacecraft has meet some requirements. So this is the reason we conducted the orbit maneuver of the Tiangong Space Station, and we just launched the Shenzhou-16 today.
This is the view you never see before, because it's used by the drone. The drone to film.
From a very safe distance, right?
Yeah,
and you're watching live footage from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch
But we can
Center.
have
This is the launch tower. It's fully open now. We can see the Long March, the combination of the Long March 2F rocket and the Shenzhou-16 spacecraft. Now we're about to reach another crucial mark.
T minus 5 minutes.
Yeah, T minus, in a professional way. 5 minutes to the launch. Right, we've passed the 5-minute countdown to the launch, T minus 5.
And
so the launch will take place at 09:31 Beijing time. That's 01:31 GMT. Yes, Professor.
And the onboard computer of the Long March 2F rocket will be in charge of the control of the whole vehicle after several seconds.
So can we say it's kind of an automated process?
Yes,
okay.
Because you know
but human can intervene at any time.
Override. We have the remote control system, but at this moment, you know, maybe after several seconds, the onboard computer will in charge of everything.
Right.
So you can see these 2 black holes by the newcomers. Those are 2 windows.
Right.
That's privileged to these 2 newcomers. The commander does not see the window, but these two new guys will see the window. But it's
for the view, right? That's for the view.
Yes. But it's still black because outside is the fairing.
Yeah.
But once you deploy the fairing, they will see the whole Earth. I mean,
you see, look, they have already closed their helmet.
Okay. Helmet.
So
helmet closed.
It forms the airtight sealing.
So it's another redundancy for safety purpose. Yeah. Because the cabin is already have a life support system, because the oxygens and temperatures all adjusted.
They're holding hands, working as a team.
Control.
Best wishes for this mission.
I think it's the commander giving this to some courageous.
Yeah.
And it is
the commander Jing Haipeng is 56 years old now, and the other 2 colleagues of his are all 36 years old. So this is kind of a generational relay race in the Chinese.
20-year gap.
Yeah, 20-year gap. But let's remember, Mr. Jing Haipeng made it very clear that there is no generational gap between them. Yeah.
When he mentioned this, there is.
T minus 3 minutes and counting.
Psychologically, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Then I think the last
3 minutes countdown to the launch.
Last guy from the tower is already in the bunker, so everybody's clear from the tower.
Yeah, waiting for the big moment. The sky
next
is really clear.
You can see that the rotational arms will leave the vehicle.
There's still a reddish small arm that is still providing some
connections.
And that arm will evacuate in last seconds, maybe minutes. Yeah,
minute. Just
because
one.
There are some plug-ins. It will be unconnected from the launch vehicle.
Right.
Oh, you can see.
Okay.
The reddish.
Yeah, this is the last remaining arms that's still holding the rocket.
And then once these 2 leaves, you can see that the rocket is standing on 4 small pins. So that is, the stability of the rocket. You have to, keep its very centralized gravity.
The cables on these arms are connected to the onboard computer of the launch vehicle.
You 2 gentlemen are already industrial veterans. Are you still excited about this? Because right now my heart is
every
pumping
time we are nervous.
You are?
Yeah.
Every time?
Every time is very nervous.
You've seen this too much, I thought.
Exciting and nervous.
Right. The 3 Taikonauts are ready. The launch of the Shenzhou-16 manned space mission is imminent at the moment. 09:31 is the launch time. for this mission. You're watching live footage from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwestern China. This is live footage from inside the Shenzhou-16 spacecraft. The 3 Taikonaut are ready to go.
It seems that the 3 crew members are much more calm than us.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, they're well trained. 1 minute countdown to the launch. 1 minute countdown to the launch.
And the arm will be open.
Anytime.
50 seconds to the launch.
See, it's separated.
Now, the rocket is in standalone mode, ready for launch and ignition.
Now, at this stage, the rocket is on its own. The navigation's
30 seconds to go.
So this is a video from the drone.
Never been seen this.
Nine, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Lift off.
Pitch over means that it has already changed its direction from vertical direction to the
a certain angle, right? We can also see that from a far short.
To the eastward.
Yes. The Shenzhou-16.
So this is a video from the camera mounted on the core stage.
Right.
And this is an infrared image.
You're watching live footage on the launch of the Shenzhou-16 spacecraft to China Space Station.
And the next critical step will be the jettisoning of the emergency escape tower.
Right.
Again, this is infrared.
We can see a clear angle change, right?
Yeah. So it's flying eastward.
So will there be still some adjustment of the angle to the 41.5 degree as you earlier mentioned?
Yeah. So the inclination. So this is you can see the 2 of the boosters.
There are 4 in total,
there are 4.
right? Yeah.
So there are 2 on this
side.
side.
Just from one side. Yeah.
Should be able to see it when separation.
Right.
Yeah.
So the emergency escape tower will be jettisoned soon.
You can see some light sparks on the top of the rocket when it's injected.
Right. Yeah. And on the right side of the screen is the simulation.
3D simulation. But it is driven by the real data.
Real data, of
which
course.
Means that the position and the jettison.
The jettison of the escape tower.
Yeah. And the next step will be separation of the 4 boosters.
Right. Let's wait.
Great.
For those step by step.
Followed by separation of the fairing.
The G forces acting on the bodies of the astronauts are increasing.
We can see the burning mark on the entrance, right? So right now is really high into the atmosphere, right?
Separated.
Okay, separation of the 4 engines.
And the core stage is also separated.
Core stage separated.
So this is again the infrared image. We can see very clear the 4 boosters and the first stage.
They've already separated from.
Now it's already on the working of the second stage.
Second stage.
As I mentioned, it has 1 main engine and 4 vernier engines.
Right. They say they feel so comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're talking.
I think they've done the max Q, which is the maximum gravity.
They've already done that.
Yeah, they've already done it.
So you can see this is a camera from the video mounted on the second stage.
Stage.
And this is a camera in the payload fairing. And the next critical step will be the jettisoning of the payload fairing. Okay.
It's all done.
It's jettisoned.
Already done.
Yeah.
Now they can see the sightseeing from the window.
Yes, yeah, they can see the outside.
Yes. So are they out of the atmosphere right now?
Exactly.
So can we say they're already in outer space?
Yes.
You're watching live footage from inside the Shenzhou-16 spacecraft. The 3 Taikonauts are now in outer space, heading towards the China Space Station. On the left side of the screen, we can see the camera mounted still on the
On
core stage.
The second
outside
stage.
the core stage.
So this is the working of the second stage of the Long March 2F rocket vehicle. Still, on the left of the screen is the infrared videos.
Right.
And the second stage of the Long March 2F worked much longer than the first stage because it only has one main engine,
right,
with a thrust about 80 tons.
This is the image of the stage, the second stage engine.
The main engine of the second stage is fixed, and you can see that the small engine on the left corner, the small warning engine can change its direction to control the trajectory.
Okay, but the main engine is fixed its angle.
Yeah.
For propulsion purpose.
Yeah, right.
And usually we separate the payload fairing at the altitude of about 100 kilometers. So at this moment, according to the definition,
now we can see again live streaming from inside the China Space Station.
They are watching the live coverage.
They're getting closer.
They're getting closer and closer to their colleagues at this moment.
And also on the right bottom of the screen, we can see the 3D animation, and also you can see the data link between the ground stations and the launch vehicle.
Okay, so 3 of them.
Three ground stations.
3 ground stations.
At this moment. They're constantly changing.
Right.
So they are experiencing the.
It's also a relay race between different ground.
They have a relay.
Downstream,
yes.
And this is a video on the rear part of the second stage.
It's still working at this moment,
it's
right?
Still working.
Burning.
And the next critical step will be the shutdown of the main engine. But
we can see the Earth, right?
Yes.
Yes, it's very bright.
So they're now in outer space, and the second stage engine is still at work. What's the next stage aim? They're adjusting the position angles or
adjusting its trajectory.
Trajectory.
You can see, although it is in daytime, but the sky is black because they were already in outer space in a vacuum condition.
Yeah. So the rocket engine will take them to the right velocity and right altitude, and right orbit before there is a separation between the engine and the capsule itself. And then the final success will be indicated by the deployment of the solar array.
Right. Wow.
They are very relaxed.
Yes.
The Shenzhou-15 crew are relaxed and happily waiting for their colleagues. But we can also see that the 3 Taikonauts in Shenzhou-16 spacecraft, they're also relaxed because they've well trained for this process. And so far, it's been a smooth process.
Mr. Dr. Zhu Yangzhu and Dr. Gui Haichao, at this moment, they are already qualified to be an astronaut because they are already above the common line.
Common line?
Yeah.
It's a professional jargon.
The altitude is 100 kilometers.
Okay.
So that is the artificial definition of the border of the outer space.
Right. The final frontier, right?
Yep.
Named under von Karman.
Right.
Renowned scientist.
So what about staying time? What if someone just passes out Mars and re-enters?
I think
the main engine shut down.
The second stage engine is now shut down.
No, the 4 vernier engines are working.
Okay. The main engine.
Main engine
has shut down.
Which means they have reached the velocity and the altitude already.
And the vernier engine will do some very precise adjustment of the trajectory.
Still, we're watching live footage from the camera mounted on the second stage. And this is live stream from outer space.
Yes. And after shutdown of the vernier engines, next will be the separation of the launch vehicle and the Shenzhou spaceship.
On the left, you can see the folded solar array. This is the stack of the solar array that has been folded in on the Shenzhou spaceship.
So at this moment, the cabin is still powered by batteries or what?
Yes, it's
Batteries.
powered by batteries.
Storage batteries.
Storage batteries. And once the solar panel is opened, then it can generate power by its own.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can see
Yeah, the
on
ground
the
stations
3D
are still
animation.
tracking the flight.
Yeah, from the 3D animation at the bottom right, you can see still that the forward engines are still working.
Right.
To adjust the trajectory.
So when Professor Yang mentioned the Whirling engine, this is the process that take full advantage of the launch vehicle, because the Shenzhou itself has its own adjustment system, but it's to take full advantage of the launch vehicle competence, and then after separation, the Shenzhou is on itself for adjustment.
Oh, they're still definitely watching in the same position. So yes, they're relaxed, but they're still anxious to
they will meet their colleagues
see the
this
success
afternoon.
of the launch at least, right?
Yes.
Well, we're also still anxiously waiting for that moment.
Okay, shut down.
Separation.
二级油机关机，团件分离。
Now the engine has left the spacecraft.
Yes.
So the spacecraft is on its own now.
And the next step will be unfolding of the solar panels.
Right.
That means the launch vehicle has done its job.
It has now completely left the spacecraft. Its
The
job is done.
The March 2F is done. It's
And
finished.
next, we will measure the precise orbital parameters of the Shenzhou spaceship. And once it was confirmed it is accurate enough, we can announce the success.
Right.
Now astronauts are feeling microgravity environment. They can throw up their pin and they're floating.
We just heard the voice, the Changjiang 3, which means the space tracking ship.
Now, on the left-hand side are the Shenzhou-16 crew, and on the right side of the screen are the Shenzhou-15 crew. They're about to meet soon, once the docking is completed, and they will do a handover, right?
Yeah, in orbit.
Yeah, and eventually the Shenzhou-15 crew will go back to Earth.
Prepare a meal for 6.
You just heard that, right?
Yes.
That's crucial for a long trip, right?
You know that the Mr. Deng Qingming from the Shenzhou-15 crew is already a grandfather.
Right.
Yeah. His daughter is also working in our space field.
It's also a generational thing. Yeah.
Now we're looking at the solar panel that's ready to be deployed.
We can see clearly the Earth is.
Yes.
Now, at least for us, it's on the right-hand side of the Shenzhou-16 spacecraft.
Yeah. So I believe this is a video from the camera mounted on the propulsion module of our Shenzhou spaceship. So you can see the solar panels.
So this camera will be there, right?
Yeah. And you know that transferring signals with videos need a very high capacity.
Is it more constrained by bandwidth or other
Exactly.
transmission?
So there are coordinations between NERS and the ITU to get the compatible radio frequency.
Now the solar panel is unfolding.
Unfolding very slowly. Great.
It's fully unfolded from what we can see, but we still need confirmation from ground control. The Shenzhou-50 crew inside the China Space Station are watching closely. They've been watching in almost the very same positions, right? Now Beijing, solar panel unfolded as planned. I just heard confirmation from the Beijing Aerospace Command and Control Center. So the Beijing Center has taken over.
Now the command has changed from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center to the Beijing Flight Control Center. But still,
And it will be so.
Yeah, but still
in the rest of
the announcement
mission.
of the success will be in the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. Great. The antenna for the data relay satellite has already been unfolded.
And the solar panel, I just heard the solar panel is working
normally.
as planned.
We
Yeah,
have we just heard the voice that the driver, we call that SADA, work very normally. The solar array drive assembly called SADA work normally.
That's the arm of the the solar array.
Yeah. You have so many abbreviations and jargons in your profession. This is a kind of a NASA left tradition.
The SADA has been used widely in the community.
Okay, let's report the space tracking ships called Changjiang, which means the Yuanwang space tracking ship, has already sent the measurements of the orbital parameters.
But that means that it's already in the Pacific Ocean.
Yes, exactly.
It's above the Pacific. It's outside China already.
So,
16号，我是北京，通报座舱大气环境及身体状况。
two teams. One's expecting to meet the other, and the other is watching closely on the successful launch, the announcement of a successful launch. So we're still in, kind of, technically speaking, we're still in the launch process, right? Until that announcement of a successful launch.
As I mentioned, we must confirm that the orbital parameters is accurately mapped. Only at these circumstances we can announce it is a success.
神舟16号经地面确认，座舱环境正常，可以打开面窗。
Now they can open their helmets now.
Yeah, because
so
they must first monitor the parameter of the atmosphere. There do have what we call life support system, environmental control and life support system inside the cabin.
You can see the right side, the window is very bright.
Yeah.
So
they're facing sunlight, basically. Or the reflection of sunlight from the Earth.
Reflection of the Earth, yes. On the other side, it's also quite bright. I think it's they can enjoy a good view after they lift the helmet.
Right.
You can see Mr. Zhu Yangzhu on the far side.
Yeah.
Just near his seat, there is a button to cut the parachutes.
Oh, really? Where's the button exactly?
The button during the landing, Mr. Zhu Yangzhu will be in charge of cutting the parachute.
I see, because he's the flight engineer, right?
No, because he is 02.
Oh, 02.
各号注意，我是北京。根据北京实时轨道与遥测数据监视判断，神舟16号飞船已进入近地点高度200公里，远地点高度360.8公里，倾角41.3度，周期1小时30分钟的预定轨道。飞船太阳慢慢展开，工况正常，航天员状态良好，后续工作按正常飞行计划实施。
Professor, you've got your parameters now. What's your reading?
According to the announcement of the commander in Beijing Flight Control Center, the orbital parameters are very accurate. I believe that next the commander in the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center will announce the result of the launch.
And I also heard readings on the apogee and perigee.
Yeah.
Why is that? That's kind of crucial indicators for a right
orbit? Very crucial. Actually speaking, the perigee and apogee it must be lower than our space station. According to the feature of the orbital dynamics, the lower it is, the faster it rotates. So it is a chasing vehicle chase our Tiangong Space Station. Within 6 hours, they will meet their colleagues.
So 6 hours, a fast stalking process. Yeah.
So we can hear the apogee and the perigee is 360 something. The station is 370 something. So that is just below the station that can catch up at the right point.
下面请酒泉卫星发射中心主任、发射场指挥部周立鹏指挥长宣布发射结果。
Now we're waiting for the official announcement of the result of the launch of the Shenzhou-16 mission.
Officials, experts, and comrades. According to the flight data and report from Beijing Aerospace Center, the Long March 2 Y-16 carrier rocket has sent Shenzhou-16 manned spacecraft to the preset orbit. The solar panel has been unfolded successfully and is functioning well. I now declare the launch of Shenzhou-16 mission a complete success.
Now, this just came in. China has just officially announced the successful launch of the Shenzhou-16 manned spacecraft with 3 Taikonauts on board. For more on that, let's cross live to our reporter Wu Lei at Beijing Aerospace Command and Control Center. Wu Lei, now the Beijing Center has taken over the flight control. Bring us up to date.
Hello, Pandeng.